First of all, Mr. Pace, I would like to, for grading me this interview, I would like to thank you. I have divided this interview in 3 different blocks.
Okay.
The first one is about you and your experience at Real Salt Lake and the MLS. The second one is about your current job at Burnley. And finally, I would like to discuss some things about the Premier League.
Okay.
Okay. You were Real Salt Lake manager since
2006
2008. Yes. What would you highlight from that period?
Well, I hadn't had the opportunity to work in sports before that period. And so that was the first time that I actually got to work with a sports team. So it was a very, very new experience. My background was in financial services and working with banks. And so this was the first time when I went to Real Salt Lake to work with a sports team. So it was completely different. I learned so many things that were so new for me at the time that there's a lot. I mean, almost anything you can think about, players and trading players and recruiting players and how do you build it. We built a stadium. We built a stadium for about 24,000 people. We did a whole bunch of things that were all first for me. So what I would say is it was a great learning time for me. I can't say that I did everything, the best, but we did a lot really, really well. And we had a lot of really great people that taught me a ton of things. So it was a lot of learning.
Okay. Why didn't you invest in any other American sports?
So we did actually. So we actually also invested in the St. Louis Blues. We owned the St. Louis Blues in the National Hockey League in the NHL. I was not responsible. That was some of my partners, but they did own something else. We also did look at other teams. But the hardest part about buying a team is, the valuation, and there's not very many of them for sale. So you have find one that's for sale, and then you have to find one that it works for you from a price perspective and that it works as far as the sellers and do they want to really sell and those kinds of things. So we did invest in other sports teams at that time with that group, and they did continue to do that for a while. But that's, so we did, but we just couldn't find all the things that we wanted at the prices that we wanted.
Okay. What was your experience like in the MLS?
So it was a very new league. So it was growing and expanding a lot. It was really, really interesting because I got to see how a league, when it starts out, so not like the leagues now that I'm involved with and that we're doing here, but more of how it was growing and how it was developing. So it was a very different experience because it was kind of like, rather than something that's well established. I mean, you think about like Real Madrid. I mean, there's nothing that's going to change about Real Madrid. Okay. But this was about everything was changing all the time. We were getting new teams that were coming into the league that were being created. We were a fairly new team. We'd only been around for a few years. So it was all about growth and all about kind of new learning. So it was actually quite interesting to see a league actually being developed and born, because that doesn't happen very often. So I learned a lot about kind of that process and got to meet a lot of really, really interesting people that, were owners of teams, were managers of teams. If you remember, that's also when David Beckham came to play for LA, for the LA Galaxy. And so that whole experience, why they started to look at bringing foreign players to America to help create a market for people to want to watch it and follow it differently. So that was a really interesting time to kind of watch how people develop sports teams and sports leagues.
Okay. And now your current situation in the Premier League. You have been Burnley president for 3 months, which is a short time. But how was an American able to convince English football that he could manage a team?
Well, the interesting part is that all you have to do is be able to buy a team. So it's not that I had to convince a lot of people. I still have to convince a lot of fans that I can do it well. But as far as being able to actually get the team, that's pretty easy. I say that. I mean, you have to be able to show that you have enough, funds or money to be able to buy a team. And then you have to pass a test, which they do a bunch of investigations on you as to see if you are what they call fit and proper, so that you're not going to do harm to the team and that you don't have a bad background or anything else from some of the things that you've done. And so that's really all you really have to do is have enough money and pass the test. Now, that's not really what we know, that everyone really wants to see actually how you act and what do you do every day. And we're just getting started. So hopefully people are seeing what we're really all about and what we're trying to do. But it will be a while before I've convinced, I'm sure, most of the fans that we're really sincere and that this is what we want to do and that this is going to be a good thing for them and for the club. So it still will take a little while, I have a feeling. But the league was convinced when they saw us and they spent time with us and when they looked at the things that we were trying to do. So that was easier than the fans. The fans are going to take some time.
Okay. And why Burnley and not other club?
So we looked at a lot of different clubs, but we liked Burnley because of specifically we're very close to some very big clubs that everyone knows that are only about 30 minutes away. So Manchester is only 30 minutes away. So we have Liverpool, Everton, Manchester United, and Man City, all within 45 minutes to an hour from here. That's important because of also the academy system. So for developing players, so I'm sure you realize that, when big clubs, it's like a pyramid. So as the kids get older, they get cut by the clubs. So that means that there are kids that they've recruited that they let go that we get to see. It also is important because you have a rule that says you can only have people that are living within 90 minutes of your club. Uh-huh. And so the recruitment area is important because we have a very large city with Manchester. So players will like to live near here. Okay. They don't necessarily have to be living in Burnley, but close by. And there's a really good facilities and, a good town and everything else. So that's very interesting from a player recruitment perspective. On the community side, we loved how there's only one club in this town. Okay. So there's one town, one club. So there's no competition. This isn't like, Atletico and Real. We don't have to worry about that. Big cities have more than one. Small cities tend to have one. So that's actually really good for us. Also, if you look around the area, other than the big four that are about an hour away, we're the only club in the area that's in the Premier League. So that actually draws other people here as well and other businesses that want to be involved. But we loved how the community, that you don't see any other jerseys being worn other than ours. So you don't see, a Barcelona jersey being worn in town or anything. So we have a very, very loyal fan base. And they're very, very excited about how the club does. And so that sense of community, the location, and the ability to actually really be that center point for a larger area of businesses and everything else, so that this can be something that they can be attracted to and that we can work with. So that's what drew us here. And then we came and met the people, and we looked at the club, and we looked at how they were operating, and we really liked it. So we met some really, really good people that work at the club, and we liked what they were doing. And so we've also, some of them that had left between the time that we started, so when we bought it, we had met them, because this took almost 2 years, just so you know. It took us almost 2 years to get this done. So this wasn't just that easy.
It wasn't.
So we have really good people that we liked, that we met, and the way that they operated the club was really, really, good. And we like that.
Okay. What are your plans for the future? Any other European league or club to manage?
So we will do some partnerships with some other clubs in Europe. We will likely, probably at some point, buy some other clubs in Europe. But I can't tell you where.
Okay, I understand.
But we would like to have some other clubs. We'll probably, for the time being right now, it's more about affiliation. So we'll have some strategic relationships with some clubs to be like partners. There's a couple of clubs that we talk to a lot in Spain that help us a lot, primarily because when you recruit players, you have to give them a place that they can come to, because as you know, and you asked in some of your questions that I saw on Brexit, we can't bring all the players that we would necessarily like from Latin America and other places straight into the UK anymore with Brexit. And even under the European rules, it wasn't as easy. In Spain, as you know, there's a lot of rules in Spain that allow you to bring people from Latin America into Spain because of historical ties, either familial or other ways, that people have been able to come into Spain, and that's actually a really good relationship we think that we need to have for Latin American players coming in. Not so much Brazilians; they all go to Portugal, so we'll let them go to Portugal. But certainly for other places, we like Mexico as well, because of its closeness to the U.S. And I don't know if you know, but do you know what the #1 league is in the U.S. on TV that gets watched on television?
No.
In the United States, it's the Premier League. So it's not even MLS. Okay. Do you know what the second most watched football league is in the world in the U.S.? What do you think is the second most watched team in the U.S.? Or is that not team, league?
The Spanish.
La Liga. It's not. It's the Mexican. It's La Liga.
The Mexican. La Liga Clausura.
Yeah. So it's very interesting to look at. If you look at football, in America, it's more popular to watch the Premier League or La Liga Mexico. Those are the two that get before you ever watch MLS or anything else. And the thing is a lot of that is because you can actually get to watch all the games. So part of this is because of the breadth of stuff that is of content that is available for people. So when you watch La Liga in America, you usually only get 3 or 4 teams that you get to watch. But if you really are going to watch the whole league, you get to see a lot of games and a lot of content. And because there's so many people from Latin America living in America, La Liga Mexico actually does get a very good following, actually bigger following than MLS. So we like that as far as like relationships. So there's stuff that we're working on in Mexico and also in Spain and some other parts of Europe. So we'll see, but we will eventually, hopefully, be able to buy another team.
Okay. Fantastic. And the last part of the interview. Do you think the Premier League is the most competitive league in Europe now?
Of course I do. Why do you think there were 6 teams that were trying to form the Super League? It wasn't 6 teams from the league. So it is. I think the Premier League is super, super special. Okay. You have a really, really great system of football in the UK and in England. And the Premier League just brings that all together in one place, very differently. They've commercialized the revenues, differently than other leagues have, but it's very competitive. It's not just 2 or 3 clubs, to be honest. It's actually the whole league. I mean, we beat Liverpool this year. Okay. We were the first team to beat Liverpool, and it was the first time in like 27 or something years. But the fact that that can happen tells you how competitive the league is. It's not like we're going to win the league. It's not like we're going to beat Liverpool every night, but because it can happen is what makes it so unique. Now, it happens in other leagues. I get that. But this whole league, anything can happen on any given day. And that's what makes it great. And it's also where everyone aspires to be in this league because, yes, there is more money available. Yes, the clubs have invested more, but there's a lot more to the league. And it's, 1.4 billion people watch this league every week. That's the biggest number in the world. And that's what makes it really special as well. And so because of that, you've got a different audience. You've got a different kind of expectation of people that are coming up as far as playing. This is where you want to be. It's like, if you played basketball, you want to go to the NBA. If you play football, you want to come to the Premier League.
Okay. How has the pandemic affected the Premier League?
It's been very, very tough. It's been tough for football everywhere and for sports all over the world. I mean, I think we all know that it's not been easy for anyone, not for people, not for teams, not for businesses. Everyone has suffered. It's been hard for the Premier League because a lot of the revenues are really driven off of people being at the games, not just TV. And so the bigger clubs have really been hurt a lot. Because what they try to do is diversify their revenue stream so you're not just dependent on the television money. And if you diversify your revenue streams, then that means that you need to have fans in the actual stadium, or else you lose a lot of money. And the sponsors don't want to spend money if they're not getting fans as well. So it's been very, very hard. And so a lot of clubs have lost a lot of money. And if you get below the Premier League, it's even worse. I mean, think about all the clubs that don't have TV all around the world. If they can't have fans coming to their games, it's not the same. The other thing that is really, it's been very interesting to watch because I get to go to the games. So I actually get to be in the stadium. It's just really different experience. You hear the players yelling to each other. You hear the coaches yelling at. It's almost like going and watching it in a park. It's not the same, and it's not the same excitement that people get used to. And so it's really hard because the fan inside you wants to hear the yelling and the screaming and all the excitement, and it doesn't feel that way. It just doesn't feel that way. It's still exciting to watch when they score, but you don't get the emotion of everybody else around you being so excited for the same things or being angry at the same things. So it's very, very different. It's been a very, very challenging time. And hopefully we will get to have fans back for the last 2 matches. We're told for starting May 17th, we will get to have fans back in. How many we get is still in discussion, but it's probably somewhere around 25%.
Okay. And the last question would be, how has Brexit affected the situation of foreign players in the Premier League?
So it's a lot harder to bring players into the Premier League. They have to go through a scoring process. So it's very similar. It's actually, so when I went to school with your dad, okay, it was hard for me as an American to be able to get a job in Europe. And because you had to go through a whole process where somebody has to be convinced that you should be hired versus somebody else. And it's the same way now for Brexit. So now the rules are actually favoring players from the UK versus players from anywhere else in the world. Now, the good thing is that everywhere in the world is the same. So it doesn't matter if someone's coming from Europe or someone's coming from Latin America. But there's a point system now, and you have a harder time getting those. You have to look at all the points. They get points for playing in the first division of the country they're in. They get points for playing for their country. They get points for a certain number of years and for other things. So it's very helpful to have a competitive process for around the world that's all the same. So somebody from France is no different than somebody from Argentina, which is good from that perspective. But right now it's really tough to bring in players because we were able to take players from anywhere we wanted in Europe for no problem. Now it's not that easy. So it makes it so that UK players are at a premium, and it makes it harder for us to recruit. It just means, and because of a pandemic, we can't go and watch those players, those foreign players play. We can watch them on, obviously on video and stuff, but we haven't been able to go and see them, and our scouts have had to kind of stay away. So it makes it a lot tougher right now for Brexit and we're just started. I mean, we need a couple more years. Ask me this question in a couple of years, and I'll tell you if it's getting better. But it's really right now to be.
Okay. So that's all.
Yes. Thank
We
you.
are very, very thankful.